What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants, powered by Sleeper. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And we got some important news regarding the New York Giants as they head into Week 1 today. They had their practice today. This is their second to last practice before Sunday's matchup. They will practice one more time tomorrow, and that will be a crucial practice for game statuses with a singular injured player. I was going to say with some of these injured players, but the Giants only have one guy on the injury report, and that is Andrew Thomas, who we're going to talk about at length in today's episode, discuss the fact that he didn't practice today and how worried we might be for this offensive line in Week 1 without Andrew Thomas. But I also want to react to the news of Mike Kafka being officially crowned the Giants' offensive play caller. This is exciting news for me because I was really impressed with Kafka during the preseason. I thought the offense had tempo, had rhythm, and had creativity, and was just a lot more efficient than it was the last two seasons. So Kafka's back as the play caller. Andrew Thomas, is he back or is he not? Those are the topics that we're going to dive into in today's episode. But before we do, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And how are you feeling about the Giants news coming out of practice?
Doing pretty good, man. It's a beautiful day over here in Jersey, and I'll tell you what, Giants football is just around the bend. And yeah, we're hoping that Andrew Thomas can suit up. The news today that Mike Kafka is the official play caller. Nothing that we didn't necessarily expect. We kind of got a glimpse of that during the preseason. We thought that was the direction the Giants were going. And I personally am all for that. I think that Brian Daboll was in over his head last year. I think that he had too much responsibility. He wasn't able to keep everybody in line. He wasn't able to keep the team disciplined. I think Daboll will certainly have a say in the offensive game planning and really give his 2 cents in preparation for each individual week as we expect. But he needs to be fully focused on making sure that this team has no dumb disciplinary penalties and has to be fully focused on Jackson Dart's development. So those are the things that obviously, not to mention just all of his other responsibilities as a head coach in the locker room and on the field. But, this is a guy that has to win. They need results now. He can't be overwhelmed by play calling duties. They brought in Mike Kafka because what he experienced and what he gained from being with the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the best offenses in the league. And you mentioned it, the rhythm, the pace, everything we saw from this offense in the preseason indicated this is going to be a much better unit. And it's simply because we have better quarterback play. They can do a lot more with Russell Wilson. They can open up the screen game. They have a downfield-centric offense now. They can take shots. And let's not pretend that Kansas City didn't have a downfield offense when Mike Kafka was there. They really built that offense with Patrick Mahomes' arm strength in mind. So they know how to run those deep shots, and I think that they're going to open up this offense. Kafka really has a good feel for the pace. We saw glimpses of that early on when he was with the Giants. Things just got out of hand. Daboll wanted more control. They were kind of trying to save their asses. It all spiraled into oblivion. But now they're getting back to what made this team exciting in the first year of this regime, and I'm happy that they're kind of reverting back to what made them at least competitive, and now they have more talent to support that.
Yeah, me too. I think back on that 2022 season, Alex, and one of the things that I thought was most impressive about that offense was their ability to score in the red zone. They were a great red zone scoring team in 2022. It's one of the reasons that they won all those games and went to the playoffs. When they got into scoring position, they found a way to get the ball into the end zone. A lot of that, yes, was Saquon Barkley breaking tackles. I think back to that Week 1 matchup with the Tennessee Titans. Giants go for 2. Saquon really should have been tackled in the backfield, but he makes a man miss and somehow gets into the end zone, and the Giants end up winning that game because of that play. The Giants over the last couple of years, though, did not have that level of a playmaker on this offense after he left. Now, Malik Nabers was out there, and he is an elite level playmaker. He was out there last season. Unfortunately, though, he didn't have a quarterback that could maximize him, so it kind of nerfed the whole offense. But now that the Giants have a couple of quarterbacks that we're excited about, not only Russell Wilson, but also Jackson Dart, and hey, you know what? I even think Jameis Winston is an upgrade over the quarterbacks that they had last year. You can anticipate that there are going to be scoring opportunities when we are in the red zone. There are going to be plays dialed up for Malik Nabers, and the quarterbacks are going to be able to execute those plays. And on top of that, the Giants might skip some trips to the red zone this year. They might actually have some deep bombs away, breakaway passes to Malik Nabers. This is my favorite stat from last year, but it's not really my favorite. It's one that keeps me up at night, anxious. Malik Nabers had 29 targets, 20-plus yards downfield last season. He caught only 7 of them. He still went for 1,200 yards, which is just ridiculous. So you think about the level of playmaker that guy can be with a quarterback that can actually hit him in stride downfield. you could see one of the best wide receivers in the NFL emerge out of New York this season. So I can't wait for Malik Nabers to be maximized in this offense. I think when you do look back on that 2022 season from Mike Kafka, the Giants had Saquon. They had that one elite playmaker, but that was in the backfield. They didn't have a whole lot of receiving talent. Darius Slayton was their WR1. Towards the end of the season, Isaiah Hodgins was their WR1. He didn't even make the team the following year. So you look at the makeup of this roster, there is so much more talent right now for Kafka to work with in the quarterback room, in the running back room. Maybe not quite as much because Saquon's not here, but they've got a lot of depth and some exciting young talents in Tyrone Tracy, Cam Scatterbo, and of course the veteran in Devin Singletary. But then this receiver room, it's been completely overhauled and massively upgraded with Malik Nabers now in the fold. And even on the offensive line, I think the Giants are better now than they were in 2022. So just a lot more for Mike Kafka to work with. And when I looked at this preseason, the screen games, the short passes, the quick underneath concepts to get people open, get receivers open, and give them yards after the catch opportunities, all of that was missing from the Giants offense last year, but completely integrated into that offense in this preseason. And it opened things up for those deep shots downfield. How many deep shots did we see the Giants quarterbacks take in this preseason? Russell Wilson hit one for a gain of 80 yards. You had Jackson Dart throwing downfield dimes on a near other play-by-play basis, and even Jameis Winston stepped in week 3 of the preseason for one play and threw a touchdown pass deep down the right sideline. Those opportunities were there, though, because the Giants were chipping away at their opposing defenses with these short, chunk yardage throws, little quick screens, little drag routes, quick slants. They do all of that to get that defense to creep up a little bit and then allow those quarterbacks to grip it and rip it, baby, to throw it downfield and let that thing loose. That's what you see from the Mike Kafka offense. At least that's what we saw in the preseason. And I think that strategy wasn't available to the Giants last year because they didn't have quarterbacks who could be on time, who could play in rhythm and within the tempo of the offense. But now they have an entire quarterback room that's capable of doing that, and they have better playmakers in the receiving room to maximize those quarterbacks. So I'm excited about it. I think Mike Kafka's offense, Alex, the one word that I would use to describe it is rhythm. What are your thoughts on the way that it looked during the preseason, and how is that applicable now that the Giants are entering week 1?
Yeah, I mean, rhythm's a great way to put it. I think, like you mentioned, we had 3 different quarterbacks step in. I could even throw in Tommy DeVito into that mix as well and say everyone stepped in and dominated. Like, that was a really good sign that the scheme is ready, right? The offense is ready. They're kind of, like you said, in rhythm with it, and they're kind of understanding the pace of it, the play calling, the execution. All 4 quarterbacks had it going, and I think that's now, obviously, DeVito's not here anymore, so it's just 3. Whoever they threw in there, the execution was pretty much perfect. They had a couple drops here and there from guys like Bo Collins and Jalen Hyatt and whatnot, but, the quarterbacking was excellent for the most part. That, to me, is really, really important. They're going to be able to bait them with the screens, like you mentioned. They're going to be able to throw the ball deep. Defenses in the past really just crunched inside the box against the Giants. They would stop the run, play man coverage, beat us because their quarterbacks couldn't do anything. I watched a 4-minute clip today, Anthony, a 4-minute clip I sent to you of Daniel Jones and Drew Lock throwing the ball to Malik Nabers. I watched Malik Nabers get underthrown or sailed over his head. It might have been an extra 400 yards on his film. Like, straight up, there might have been an extra 400 yards on his film and maybe 3 to 4 touchdowns that were taken away by just horrific throws. Horrific. And then the flip side is that was we saw Russell Wilson making a lot of beautiful throws. And I think you're going to do a film breakdown about this. And that the ball placement was impeccable, right? Malik Nabers is going to have the ball in his freaking basket more than he's ever seen before, outside of Jaden Daniels at LSU. It's going to be similar. Jaden Daniels and Russell Wilson actually have a pretty similar deep ball in the way they throw it. So I think that it's pretty exciting that Malik Nabers now, second year as a pro, he had all those missed opportunities last year, is going to get a quarterback that can hit the deep ball. Malik Nabers would have been one of the best deep ball receivers in football last year if it wasn't for the quarterbacking. We're going to see an explosion from him that I don't even think we're truly ready for. We already know he's a superstar, but he did it with literally horrible quarterbacks. So now he has a good one that has one of the best deep balls in the history of the sport. It's going to be fun to watch, and this offense, this play calling, this style plays right into it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people forget is coming out of that 2024 NFL draft class, no receiver in that class had more deep receiving yards than Malik Nabers. He was the best deep receiving threat in that class, and we barely saw that show up last year. But it wasn't his fault. We know he's got the talent, the skills, and the potential to be an elite deep playmaker. He just didn't have the quarterbacks that could maximize him. Again, going back to that stat, 29 targets, 20 plus yards downfield last season, only 7 of them were caught. Go back to that 2024 season, he had 29 downfield targets. He put up over 700 yards on those 20 plus yard targets with Jaden Daniels throwing him the football. Last year, it hovered around 200. So you're right, there was about 500 yards left on the table for Malik Nabers. Think about how ridiculous that is. He went for 1,200 yards anyway. He put up 7 touchdowns. He had the record for the most receptions by a rookie in NFL history. And he was missing about 500 yards from his stat sheet due to inept quarterback play. So you think about what he could do this season. I keep making the bold prediction, triple crown for Malik Nabers. I think it's going to happen. I really do see him having the potential to go for the most yards and touchdowns and receptions this season. He's finally got quarterbacks that can throw him the ball, and I think he's got an offensive coordinator who's got a better grasp of things. Another wrinkle to this, Alex, with Mike Kafka moving back into the play calling duties, he's moving down to the sidelines. If you remember a couple of years ago when Mike Kafka was the play caller, and he was starting to slip and not call the plays as well, I advocated really hard on this channel for him to get on the sidelines. We've seen coaches before be up in the box calling the plays and then come down to the sidelines, and it changes everything. I feel like that's happened for Mike Kafka. I think being on the sideline gives you the opportunity to communicate better with your players, right? You get to have more clear and obvious communications and discussions on cadences and route concepts with your players while they're on the field and on the sidelines. And I think that is a very important element of being a top-tier play caller. And now Mike Kafka being on the sidelines, I think has really helped him through the preseason, and I think it's going to be very helpful for the players themselves during the regular season, knowing, hey, the guy who's calling these plays, he's a resource to us. He is now on the sideline. I can go up to him and chat at any moment. I can ask him a question. I can get some clarity on this play call, and we can move forward. And I also think it gives him a better understanding of momentum and who might be a little bit banged up, who's looking a little bit slower today. I think there's so many benefits to having a coach on the sideline calling plays as opposed to being up in the box. And I'm really happy with that change. So I want to get your take on that too, Alex. Mike Kafka moving down from the box and onto the sideline.
I think it's great. Like you said, he'll be able to identify if somebody's banged up, slower, whatever it might be, start, favoring targets to guys that can really make an impact immediately. But also there's really no supplement to maybe a guy drops a pass or maybe there's a miscommunication and they're coming off the field. There really isn't a supplement to Mike Kafka going up to that player and saying, this was what you did wrong. This is what we're going to do in the next one. This is where I want you to be. This is, talking to his quarterback. There is no supplement to that. He could talk to him through the mic for sure. But when you're face to face, there's a level of respect, I think, that does play a part here. And we can't depend on Brian Daboll to be the guy that fills that communicative gap, right? We've seen him try to be that in the past and it ended up being really poorly. How many times did we hear like leaked reports of Joe Shane had to be on the mic because Brian Daboll was cursing people out or was freaking out and everyone was really confused and the communication was bad. I think that Mike Kafka being on the field eliminates Brian Daboll from poorly communicating if he gets hot. You know what I mean? Once he gets hot, there is no communicating with Daboll. It's just him yelling at you. You know what I mean? So I think that Kafka can be that level head. He can help communicate himself what the offensive expectations are, needs, wants, desires, and things they might want to change in the scheme, things they want to attack on opposing defenses that there's a weakness that he identifies. I get that bird's eye view is great, but I think him being on the field, he has assistants in the box for that reason. They'll be the bird's eye. They can allocate attention to that. They can feed him information, and then he can talk to the players face to face on what they should be doing to attack those weaknesses. So I agree with you. I don't see a downside to it. I know a lot of teams are different in the way they operate. It works both ways. You know what I mean? I think that ultimately that's a good thing, and the fact that he's going to be on the sideline, I think, will ultimately be a really big benefit for especially Russell Wilson and guys that are kind of just getting in the mix here.
Yeah, definitely. It's a new offense for a lot of these guys. And I saw quotes from Malik Nabers today saying how complex this offense is, how there's a steep learning curve. It's really difficult to get a grasp of it. And Nabers has actually taken Jackson Dart under his wing and started mentoring him and helping him learn the offense, which I thought was a really cool wrinkle that he revealed while speaking to the media yesterday. So love that leadership from Malik Nabers. And like you said, I think there's so much to having that coach on the sideline. And, the all-22 bird's eye view is great and beneficial, but they also have those tablets feeding them that at all times during the game. So I never really understood it. Be on the sideline, be present with the team. I think it's important for Kafka, and I think it's going to pay dividends for the Giants offense, hopefully with a big win in week one. So now we're going to go ahead and dive into the conversation about Andrew Thomas on the injury report, not practicing today. But before we do, quick shout out to our sponsor, Sleeper.
All right, guys, 1 second to talk about the Fireside Giants sponsor for the whole 2025 NFL season, the Sleeper Daily Fantasy Sports app. Sports are more fun when you're in it together, and that's exactly what Sleeper delivers with real-time scores, blazing fast news, and in-app chat. You can celebrate plays as they happen, and here's the kicker. Sleeper's Daily Fantasy lets you turn game day into payday. Pick more or less on your favorite player stats, touchdowns, passing yards, fantasy points, and more, and you can win up to 100 times your money. That's freaking awesome. I'm trying to cash in this year, and I want to do it with you guys. Entries take less than 30 seconds, withdrawals are fast and secure, and you can even miss a pick and still cash in with a combo play. So what are you waiting for? Download the #1 sports app today and use promo code FIRESIDE for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Terms apply. Sleeper, the best way to experience sports together. And for this week's picks, I know you want to hear them. Giants Commanders. I got Malik Neighbors over 74.5 receiving yards. Russell Wilson over 217.5 passing yards. Cam Scottaboo, I don't even think he gets that many opportunities, let alone scores a touchdown. Under 0.5 touchdown. I think Tyron Tracy might be the guy you want to bet on there. Darius Slayton over 23.5 receiving yards, 1 deep pass. And we know Russell Wilson, I think he completed 54% of his deep passes last year. That's the guy I'm looking at, Darius Slayton, who has not gotten that much attention this summer. I think he comes up big with at least 1 big reception. And then Krosky Merritt, the running back for the Commanders, rookie. I don't think he gets much playing time, even though everybody's talking about him. I think it's all hype for now. He still has a long way to go before he carves out a really big role. Less than 34.5 yards. Those are my picks for week 1. Let's lock in and let's ride.
All right, so diving back into the conversation around Andrew Thomas, Alex, let me get your take on this. He didn't practice today. He could practice tomorrow and then potentially play on Sunday, but in my opinion, seems like he's trending towards not playing. How are you feeling about this? Do you think there's a chance he plays? And if he doesn't play, what does that mean to you for the Giants offense?
Well, we know he practiced yesterday, and today they kept him out to see how his body responded to a practice session. Not a game, but a practice session. I don't see how the hell they can throw this guy out there if they're worried about how his body was responding to practice. You know, he has 2 practices under his belt. He hasn't practiced all summer long. I really think that they should be careful with him. He is already injury prone. He is not ready to play a 4-quarter game against the Commanders in week 1. He's not ready. Like, there is no way Andrew Thomas, who just started running, has the stamina to play an entire 4-quarter game after missing the entire summer of workouts. I think that, you know, when you're looking at just the situation at hand, there is no way we can trot him out there and expect him to be fully healthy. You know, expect him to be, able to lock down the blind side for Russell Wilson. I think that it has to be Marcus Bowe. I think it has to be James Hudson. One of those 2 guys. You know, my preference is Bowe. But the truth of the matter is they need to be very careful with Andrew Thomas. They just restructured his contract. They just opened up $12.2 million. Push $3 million per season over the next couple of years, the duration of his 5-year deal. That to me is a big commitment. It's a big risk because if he proves to be injury prone, they're due even more dead money every season. They need to be very careful with his health. So I do not think week 1 he should be playing, especially if he can't even get through practice without them needing a rehab day.
I have to agree with you. And unfortunately, that's just the reality of things with Andrew Thomas. He's often injured and you can't necessarily rely on him. And there's always a worry that if he's banged up and you force him out there, things are going to get worse because we've seen that happen before with Andrew Thomas. That hamstring injury that cost him much of the 2023 season was a result of rushing back from an injury too quickly. He also had issues with his ankles in his rookie season and his second season. He played through those, and playing through those resulted in him needing surgery. So there's an element to being patient with Andrew Thomas, but there's also an element to not wanting to play a football game without Andrew Thomas because he's one of the team's most important players. But Alex, other news for Andrew Thomas, the Giants restructured his contract today. And I know you're a big cap guy, so I want to get your take on this. I'll preface the information for the viewers and listeners. The Giants were $9.5 million over the salary cap. This is not a move that they're making so that they can sign a cornerback or bring in a new wide receiver or reunite with Odell Beckham Jr. That's not what this is. This is just so that they can be financially healthy once again and back in compliance with the salary cap, because they can't play in week 1 if they're over the salary cap. They will receive massive penalties and fines. So that's what this was for. But there is a long-term ramification to restructuring Andrew Thomas's deal that might not be beneficial for the team. So Alex, what are your thoughts on it? Again, I know you've got all the cap numbers. Giants restructuring Andrew Thomas.
So you're exactly right. The Giants, $9.5 million. They were negative in the cap. They had to do something here. Obviously, they had a couple different options, and they're probably going to have to do and use them anyway. They could have restructured Brian Burns. They have a little bit left over, I think, on Dexter Lawrence's contract. Those are the primary ones they can exercise to open up more cap space. They elected to go in the Andrew Thomas direction. They fully max restructured the rest of his deal. That's $12.2 million, as I mentioned. $3 million divvied out over the remainder of his contract the next 5 years. So my biggest concern is that the Giants have an out after after the second year in his deal in 2026. That, in my opinion, would have been a great opportunity for the Giants to say, okay, like, is he still injury prone? Is he still playing at a high level? Like, what is his play like? Like, what is his performance like up to this point? They would have been able to avoid an additional, $9 to $12 million in dead money, but instead they want to double down on that and give it to him anyway in guarantees. So look, it's $3 million. They can work around that. Like, it's not the end of the world. So I'm not gonna like freak out about that little bit of money year over year. They can easily maneuver and extend other guys or whatever. They have Jackson Dart kicking in his rookie contract. Obviously, it already is kicking in, but because they have a couple different quarterbacks in the roster, it's a little bit inflated, and they're still paying $20 million to Daniel Jones. So next year, we should see a little bit more freedom for the future. If you look at next year's cap space, it doesn't look like that much, but because they have so much money in 2027, 28, 29, that's really what is going to open up a lot more flexibility for them to push cap hits into the future and restructure. So, not a huge deal. They restructured Andrew Thomas, but it wouldn't have been my preference if I had to choose. I probably would have gone with Burns or Dexter Lawrence and max restructured those guys, but it seems like they're saving those guys for a rainy day, and they're probably going to have to use them anyway, at least one of them, to open up a bit more cap space as the season goes on, because there's injuries, there's practice squad elevations, there's free agent signings for injuries. Like, you need some money. So they kind of had to do it. I get it, but it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't freak out about it, but it is a little bit annoying because Thomas still is very unproven in the injury department.
Yeah, it's a necessary evil at this point, I think, is how you can describe it, because you don't want to restructure a player with an extensive injury history, because then it makes it more difficult to move on from that player in the future if you need to. But I don't think the Giants intend on moving on from Andrew Thomas. I think they are confident that he's going to bounce back. They know how talented he is and can be when he's healthy and on the field. Now it's just about getting him healthy. And I think that ties into our first conversation about him and not practicing. The Giants are adamant that they're taking it slow with Andrew Thomas. They want to be patient with him and ensure that he is fully healthy when he's on the field so that he doesn't re-aggravate anything and potentially compound his injury with another one and miss even more time. So it's very important that the Giants have him on the field. I do think there is an element of risk to restructuring his contract, though, just in case he isn't on the field this season. What if he doesn't recover properly from this Lisfranc injury, misses more time? Then a lot of us are going to be saying, man, I wish we could get out of that contract. I wish we could get a new left tackle who is available week to week. But at the same time, we're going to say, man, if we move on from Andrew Thomas, who's going to play left tackle? It's not an easy solution to fix. I mean, it took the Giants damn near a decade to get a left tackle of Andrew Thomas's caliber, and even prior to then, I don't even think they had one of Andrew Thomas's caliber. I mean, this guy is a second-team All-Pro. The last time he played 17 games, the Giants' offense was the best that it's looked in the last 10 years, and they went to the playoffs. They won 9 games. So there's correlation there, I think. And if Andrew Thomas is able to stay healthy this year, allow Russell Wilson to cook and protect his blind side, I think the Giants can win more games than anticipated, because this offense really clicks once they have their left tackle in the equation. And I always bring up that 2022 season. During that season, Mike Kafka, calling the plays, was using Andrew Thomas as one of his top playmakers. I know that sounds kind of crazy because you're not thinking about playmaker as in a guy who's making blocks, but think about it this way. They were running the ball with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley on these tricky little outside runs where Andrew Thomas was the lead blocker out in front 15 yards downfield. And he was making those blocks and springing massive rushing plays and touchdowns. That's a playmaker. That's a guy setting up the play for others to succeed, making the play on his own, arguably, as he's clearing 2, 3 guys out of the way at once on a single rep and making 40 yards of space downfield for the runner. That's a playmaker to me. So Andrew Thomas, sneakily, is one of the Giants' most important players and playmakers when Mike Kafka is the one calling the plays and having the headset on. So we'll see if Andrew Thomas can stay healthy. We'll see if he can play in week 1. But if he can't play in week 1, we are talking about James Hudson football, and that does scare me. Alex, I know you're not a huge fan of James Hudson. I think you have a take on this where you maybe don't want to see James Hudson in week 1. Maybe you want to see Marcus Bowe. I think some Giants fans do. So I'm curious to hear your take as to whether or not you think Marcus Bowe or James Hudson should get the start in week 1 if Andrew Thomas is unavailable.
It's a really good question. When it comes to who I prefer over Andrew Thomas, or rather in place of Andrew Thomas, assuming he can't go, I am team Marcus Bowe. And the reason I say that is because I don't really care about experience right now. James Hudson played 222 snaps last year, guys. 222 snaps. That is borderline not even a backup. Like, most backups on the Giants have more reps than that on a year-to-year basis. He is not a good backup. He was not used. The Browns have had a really bad offensive line. The Giants, I never really liked the signing, to be fair, to begin with. When they signed him, I didn't really get it. It was a little bit expensive, 2 years, $12 million. Like, you're going to be paying Micah McFadden close to that type of money on a year-to-year basis. And, like, he's a much better player than James Hudson, albeit on a different side of the ball. I don't think that Hudson is a great player. He is a penalty waiting to happen. He's had, I think, he had 9 penalties in 2023, and he was still a backup, like 400 snaps. 9 penalties, guys. Like, he's a walking penalty. He's one of the worst pass protecting graded offensive tackles in football. Like, how much worse could it be with Marcus Bowe out there? You know, at the very least, Marcus Bowe has upside, and this experience is going to be critical for his development. You know what I mean? Again, this is a transition year. This is a bridge year. James Hudson doesn't have, like, an astronomical amount of experience with Russell Wilson that makes a difference. You know what I mean? Like, this, if he had an experience with Russell Wilson and, like, they were buddies and, like, it was a whole thing, sure, like, absolutely that makes sense. But these guys don't know each other like that. These guys don't, like, play together like that in the past. Like, they are brand new teammates. I would rather just go with the guy that flashed a lot more upside. He didn't have any penalties in the preseason. He played left tackle and played it at a relatively solid level. I know the Washington defense is going to be better than anything we saw in the preseason against second, third stringers, whatever. But their pass rush is not crazy. The Washington Commanders like to blitz from different areas. They're not like a rush for pass rushers and then like serve and like that's their defense. They like to get creative. So in my opinion, I think having a better athlete out there is in the best interest of the Giants. Marcus Bowe is a better athlete than James Hudson. He has better feet and he has better recovery and he's less penalty tendencies. So for those reasons, I'd rather have Marcus Bowe. But again, like, if James Hudson gets the start, which I think is totally possible at this point just because of the money they gave him, if he sucks the first quarter or the first half, I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants pulled the plug pretty quickly and just kind of rode with the hot hand or tried to find who's the better option at that point. I think they'll make a quick change if need be.
Yeah, I could see it being a short leash, especially just considering how good Marcus Bowe looked in the preseason. But to be honest, I kind of side with I kind of feel like the Giants are being right and being cautious if they go with James Hudson. I get your points and your perspective on it. Marcus Bowe looked like the better player in the preseason, and he's got the higher ceiling, and we want to know what he is. But at the same time, a week 1 divisional game on the road, it's tough for a rookie to play in. Very difficult environment, very difficult circumstances for a rookie to find himself in. I'm not sure if I want to feed him to the Wolves just yet, especially considering this is a new position for Marcus Bowe. He was on the right side of the line for his collegiate career. He spent the majority of the summer on the right side of the line. Only towards the end of the summer did the Giants flip him to left tackle and have him start competing there. So I don't think putting him out at left tackle is necessarily the best course of action. I think if you really want to avoid putting James Hudson on the field, though, there is an argument for putting Marcus Bowe at right tackle and flipping Jermaine Illuminor over to left tackle. That's a third option that the Giants could consider. And honestly, if James Hudson stinks on Sunday afternoon and they have to make a change at halftime, I feel like it's more likely that they would do that than just plug Marcus Bowe in there at left tackle. But it remains to be seen. Technically, on the depth chart right now, Marcus Bowe is listed as the third string left tackle, but we all know that is an unofficial depth chart. He is the second string right tackle right now, and we'll see. Maybe they release an official depth chart on Sunday morning, and boom, Marcus Bowe is the second string left tackle. It's totally possible. So I think everything is up in the air, but whichever way the Giants go about it, they just need good pass protection, man. The offensive line looked a lot better this summer in every regard, whether we're talking about the first team, second team, or third team. They all looked better. They played as a unit. They picked up stunts better than I've seen them do in several years. Carmen Brasillo, our offensive line coach, seems to have gotten to some solid work this summer, and I'm excited for the potential of this offensive line, especially if Andrew Thomas is able to get healthy and stay healthy. Now, last wrinkle that I'll add in here, the Washington Commanders are also dealing with several injuries. They're pretty banged up. One of the biggest injuries to keep an eye on is edge rusher Dorrance Armstrong. He is banged up with a knee injury. He was limited in Wednesday's practice. I'm not sure if he's going to play this weekend, but if he's not, that is the edge rusher for the Washington Commanders that does line up over their left tackle, or the opposing team's left tackle. So potentially, it could be a weakened opponent for whoever is lined up at left tackle for the New York Giants. That would be nice. But we'll see with Dorrance Armstrong. He might end up playing. He was limited yesterday, but they haven't released their practice report for today just yet. We'll see about Dorrance Armstrong. But regardless, like I said, we need good pass protection so that we can get those Russ Moonballs to Malik Neighbors. That's what I'm trying to see this weekend. I cannot wait. It's going to be a fun one. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. And thank you to Sleeper for sponsoring this episode. We will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go New York Giants.
Perfect.